Get ready to drop the puck, take a free throw, and step up to the plate. It's time for the Metro East Sports Podcast on lineupmedia.fm.
Okay, guest number 2, Doug Stotler, athletic director and men's basketball coach at Lewis and Clark Community College. But first, if you are looking to buy or sell a home in the Metro East on the Illinois or Missouri side, please give our partners at Keller Williams Marquee, Jeb and Ginger Blasting Game the chance to serve you. They have offices in Waterloo, O'Fallon, and Edwardsville with more than 130 agents. The Blasting Games are a family-owned business that has helped over 5,000 families find just the right home. The Lipes are one of those families. Jeb and Ginger sold our house quickly because they're experts at staging and pricing, and they can do the exact same thing for you. No wonder they're ranked in the top 10 real estate teams in North America. Give Jeb and Ginger Blasting Game a call at 618-578-9276 or check them out online at blastinggamegroup.com. You will not be disappointed. Speaking of not being disappointed, I don't think I've ever been disappointed when I have visited the campus at Lewis and Clark Community College. One of the nicest campuses in the area. Agreed?
Very much so, Dave. And I got to tell you, I'm impressed. I thought you were a tennis coach. Now I find out you're a salesman too.
You didn't know I can read?
I didn't know what you were doing there. I thought maybe you just pulled that from the depths of your mind, but it's terrific.
I'm an
multi-talented.
I'm an English teacher. I can read. What the other thing I can do now is I can do stuff like this. I can switch the cameras around. I'm a television producer. And let's talk about you. Where are you from?
I grew up south of St. Louis, about 30 minutes in a lead town called Herculaneum.
I've heard of it.
St. Joseph Lead Company was the primary industry, and they've shut that place down completely because lead is now toxic.
So we weren't supposed to be eating those lead paint chips back in the day.
You know, batteries and that kind of thing are a little problematic. But every time my mother would come to a basketball game, she'd see me get mad at referees. She'd look at me after the game and says, "I just knew that lead exposure was going to cause you problems someday." She was right.
So you were a basketball star at Herculaneum High?
Herculaneum High School, yeah. My better sport as an athlete was always baseball, but basketball was always near and dear to my heart. My dad was my varsity basketball coach my sophomore, junior, and senior year, so we grew up in an athletic family.
Was he a teacher at Herculaneum?
He was. He was a vice principal. He was athletics director. He was social studies teacher. He drove the school bus, back in the day from 1970 to 79, I guess it was. He was doing it all, and then he ended his career as a vice principal at Herculaneum High School.
And that's where you first had your love of sports, and basketball in particular was as a high school kid, and through your dad, really.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool.
And it's very interesting that I ended up at junior college because that's where he got his start as a student athlete. So I'm coaching guys just like my dad here, 40 years later. It's kind of cool.
Did you play after high school?
I did. I played at Maryville College in St. Louis, played both sports, and it was quite the challenge to try to play basketball and baseball in college. I was one of those guys that wasn't a particularly good student, but I knew I had to stay eligible. And then my junior year, I really understood how valuable a degree would be, so I got a little bit more serious about school. I think a lot of kids are like that, particularly the ones that we recruit at community college level. They know the value of an education, but what is really, really important to them is their sport. That's what's kept them in school a lot of times.
Where do you recruit? Where you, all over the country?
We have. We've been getting international players. We've been getting kids from Chicago. We've been getting kids from St. Louis. We've gotten kids from the Lewis and Clark School District. It just depends on what our needs are sometimes and what kids value. Most kids really, really fall into the kissing your sister syndrome. And what I mean by that is
careful.
When a kid from Edwardsville, starts looking for schools. He wants to get out, and moving out of the house is a pretty important thing to an 18-year-old. So, sometimes they don't get to do that when they come to Lewis and Clark. It's just like, Coach, I don't want to kiss my sister. I want to go find a new girlfriend somewhere. So they end up doing that, and I fully support it. But then, we'll go to Chicago, and we're just far enough away at that point that it's a brand new experience for them, and they're excited about it. But our recruiting base is very, very large, and especially in these last 2 years, it's all become virtual.
Mm-hmm.
Lots and lots of email, lots and lots of video chats.
It's kind of easier because in the old days you had to go see somebody, and these days you can talk to somebody and you can see film.
I spend a lot of time driving the car, or used to anyway, to try to get somewhere. You drive 2.5 hours to watch, honestly, 15 minutes of basketball, and immediately whether he's good enough or not. And so you drive 2.5 hours back and say, boy, I wish I could get those drive times back.
Yeah. Let's go back to your journey. When did you know you wanted to be a coach?
At the point, probably in my 7th and 8th grade year, there was a post-game powwow that involved my father, his JV coach, and the freshman coach, and then a couple of just key basketball fans in our community. And, you'd have a 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock game's over, you get back to the house 10 p.m., and you got 6 people in your house talking about every possession of the game. And these guys were really knowledgeable basketball people. I don't want to talk too much about what my dad knew and what he didn't know, but he played at Moberly Junior College at the time, his first year, and then he went on to play at Flat River Junior College and had some tremendous coaches that he played for. One of them being Cotton Fitzsimmons. Cotton Fitzsimmons, his claim to fame was he was an NBA basketball coach with the Kansas City Kings. So Dad got a pretty good introduction to coaching at that level. And, just hearing all of the banter and the opinions on things that were done and things that should have been done really intrigued me. And I was just involved in it at a very, very young age. I'm older from a basketball standpoint than my years are, just because, not many kids get a chance to learn strategy in their 7th and 8th grade year.
You're a lifer.
Really?
You're a basketball lifer.
This is, I'm over 35 years now in the community college athletics game. Everything from coaching basketball to coaching baseball, to being athletic director, and now even being involved at the NJCA national level. I think I am. This has been a career. It's not been a job. It's something that I loved every single day.
You've been at Lewis and Clark for almost 2 decades now.
I think it's 24 total years.
Yeah, sorry.
Spent a little bit of time at McKendree. Spent a little bit of time at St. Louis Community College, and most recently had a gap period there at Jefferson College in between my Lewis and Clark stints.
Of about 5 years?
Yep, it was 5 years where I was an athletic director.
And that's been about the only time that you've truly been away from basketball, and you missed it.
I went there to start a basketball program. I really thought that it was an opportunity to rekindle, very similar to what occurred at Lewis and Clark. Jefferson College disbanded its basketball program, I think it was in 88. And I had been an assistant coach there, and they've got wonderful facilities, and it just was an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. But then I discovered that it wasn't going to be a reality. And, when you start thinking about basketball the way I think about it, yes, I missed it dearly.
You're a national leader. You're on the Board of Regents for Division I.
Board of Regents for the entire organization. There are 36 individuals throughout the United States that represent a region that basically helps make decisions about bylaws and constitution changes. We're a pretty select group in that the athletic directors in Southern Illinois elected me to serve in that position.
So you're a national basketball leader and you're in a position of leadership nationally for the game.
On the Division I National Baseball Committee, on the Division II Women's Basketball National Committee, on the National Men's and Women's Division I Tennis Committee. Got all kinds of stuff going on.
I had no idea you were involved on those other committees as well. I knew you were a big deal in basketball, and I knew that you were the athletic director, but being on all those committees is quite a chore.
It takes a lot of time. But again, we're involved in decisions, I think, that probably impact more people than I ever dreamed I would impact as a basketball coach. Out east this year, COVID particularly was a problem in the northeastern part of the country, and schools were shutting programs down. So we were making legislation and projecting bylaws that would allow teams to compete. So it wasn't anything that, necessarily impacted anything in Illinois, but it did impact people in New Jersey.
And you've been at Lewis and Clark long enough that you must love it.
It's a great place.
There are people out there right now who have never heard of or been to Lewis and Clark Community College in Godfrey, Illinois. What do you want those people to know about Lewis and Clark?
The people at that institution lay it on the line for students every day. They have a purpose. They know what they're there for, and they're very good at what they do. We recently had a change in presidents. Dale Chapman retired a couple of years ago, and Ken Traska is our new president. And anytime you have a change in leadership like that, there are some things that change, but I think the core part of Lewis and Clark is going to exist forever. It's the people in the trenches that are doing the work that's so valuable to our students. Obviously, the enrollment and the admission staff, the financial aid staffs, and then the faculty, of course. Those are the people that do the job, that get kids prepared to move on from Lewis and Clark. That's our primary job, is to get kids an education so that they can move forward to a college or university level.
I think it's a really underrated first step. I think, especially if you're struggling to pay for college, you don't know if you can afford a 4-year school, Lewis and Clark, SWIC, another good option. But I think the Metro East is lucky to have 2 junior colleges right here in our area. Obviously, you're here today, so we're going to focus on Lewis and Clark. But, again, beautiful campus, great faculty and staff, unbelievable athletics. And you don't just get to focus on basketball, because you got to talk about some of those other great programs there. Baseball, soccer, Tim Rooney and the soccer program there, and on and on and on.
Well, our 10 sports, I think are – we look at the big picture. We've in the fall, we play men's and women's soccer and volleyball. In the winter, it's men's and women's basketball. In the spring, it's softball, baseball, golf, men's and women's tennis. Golf does also have a fall season, but it's more categorized as a scrimmage type. But their qualifying season is in the spring. And I think generally when you look at programs in high schools, we've got a terrific representation of what schools offer in the Riverbend. So, we've got something for everybody. But it's a great place. I always start a conversation with recruits by saying, hey, it's a medium-sized school. And they say, well, what do you mean by that? And we talk about our 7,000 student head count, but we've got in that neighborhood of 2,500 to 3,000 traditional age students. And now we have a residential population. We've got an apartment complex on campus that can house about 120 to 130 students. But it's got a lot of everything. Just a great start for kids that either don't know what they want to do or they do know and can take a handful of courses and eliminate some expense prior to transferring to a college or university.
I think it's fantastic. And for those of you out there who want more information, you can go to www.lc.edu. And from there, you can take it to athletics or academics or whatever you want to learn more about Lewis and Clark. Let's talk about some of those great programs. Let's talk about Tim Rooney in particular in that soccer program. That he seems to just work some kind of magic every year, doesn't he?
Coach has a demeanor that I wish I could play for him. He's lovable. He's stern when he needs to be stern. He's a lot more patient than I could ever be, and I think he really is a player's coach. They enjoy being around Coach Rooney. When things aren't good, and that's rare, the kids still want to be around him. When basketball's not going good, the guys don't want to be around me.
I want to have Rooney on the show very, very soon. And I think it's interesting. I'm not sure you know this, but that soccer program was started by Ed Hunnicky. I had Ed on this show. Was the former coach at SIU.
Yeah.
He told me he started that soccer program on this show.
I'm thinking Rooney came in the late 80s, and
after him, maybe.
The coach is older than dirt. I mean, he's just been there forever. He is part-time now. He's only coaching women's soccer.
Okay.
He stepped away from men's soccer a few years ago, and we made a replacement for the men's team with Ryan Hodge, who is Tim Rooney, a former player.
Okay.
But Roon he's got such a great knowledge of the game, but I really think his strong suit is managing personalities and getting the most he absolutely can out of kids that can do one or two things well, and he just puts a great product on that field every year.
Yeah, it's obvious because you read about him year after year after year, and you've got 3 top 10 finishes nationally in the top division in junior colleges, or first it was Division I, now it's Division II, or vice versa.
And let me explain to your listeners, in community college athletics, it's very similar to the NCAA. There are 3 levels. There's Division I, Division II, Division III. Division I is an opportunity for schools to offer a full ride, tuition, room, board, books, fees, transportation. In Division II, which is what Lewis and Clark men's basketball was from 93 till 2010, it's tuition and fees and books only. Division III in community college sports is just like Division III NCAA, no scholarships whatsoever.
Got it.
The predominance of D3 schools are in the northeastern pocket of the country. The D1s are heavy in Florida, Texas, Kansas. In Illinois, there's a real mixture. In Region 24, which is Southern Illinois, that's about half and half. But what I will say about Region 24 Division II sports is we seem to have a national champion coming from Southern Illinois every year at the junior college level in something. Just really terrific coaches at all levels in Region 24. Again, that's geographically all of Southern Illinois.
And you've had a lot of success. What's your style as a coach?
We're lucky if we keep kids for 1 year. So we're really focused on trying to determine how we're going to score with those guys, and then figure out, all right, how do we stop these 4 Division I athletes at Vincennes or John A. Logan? How do we stop those guys? And it depends every year on what our personnel is. It's a lot different animal than it was when we were Division II. Big-time athletes. For example, I don't know how many people realize this, but there is a pro in the NBA that just left John A. Logan 2 years ago.
Who's that?
I knew you were going to ask me. The starting center on John A. Logan's team was a University of Kansas signee. You know, these guys beat our brains in, and I try to forget most nights, but they're just high-level players. Scrub. Jay Scrub is the kid that's in the NBA right now that
Cool.
played for Logan. And I think that same thing occurs in baseball. Wabash Valley, for example, is in Region 24, and they were the number 1 ranked team in Division I baseball. Lewis and Clark's baseball program we had a 3rd place finish years and years ago, but, competitive every year. Randy March just recently retired. Randy was a lifer, not only at the community college level, but just baseball in general. Played at South Carolina and then had a stint in the major leagues with the White Sox and the Cubs. And gosh, we've just had good people there. And I think that's one of the big things that we can point to is why, we've had some success is we've had good people and they were smart enough to surround themselves with good players.
Is it tougher to be an AD or a head men's basketball coach?
I think it probably depends on what you focus on. When I started this, I had the good fortune to work for George Terry. George was the athletics director, and I was the assistant athletics director along with the women's basketball coach. And the thing at the time that I didn't realize was how much George actually did as the athletic director that was freeing me up to be basketball coach. Okay, now that Mr. Terry's gone and my boss, Sean Hill, is, very well-rounded, but his forte is not athletics, I discovered there's a lot more athletic director work that goes into this. And, trying to be able to combine that with the basketball duties has been a real challenge. But, boy, did I misunderstand what George Terry was doing for me back in the mid-'90s to coach basketball.
What do you love about being an AD? I know what you love about coaching basketball. You love the X's and O's and working with the kids, but what do you love about being the athletic director at Lewis and Clark Community College?
The fact that we've got coaches that have been there forever. If something goes wrong, I know they can handle it. And then I just enjoy being able to watch kids in each of these programs grow from freshman into sophomore into, university level transfers. Watching them meet that goal and meet that dream is one of the things that I like the most. There's a lot of compliance that goes into it nowadays, meaning eligibility and letters of intent. But that's all secondary to watching the success of all the student athletes as they come through the programs.
Is the game different now than it was when you started?
The general athletics game, probably not. I think everything about how you play the game is pretty similar. I think the students are a little different, but I think their goals are essentially the same as they were. They want to play. I think the things that they enjoy most about Lewis and Clark is they can do a little bit of everything. It's a great place to go to school to earn a degree. It's a great place to learn their craft in their sport. But then I think the size of the community in Godfrey is special to them. It's not too big and not too little. I just think there's a lot of things they enjoy about it.
And you got a major metropolitan area right across the river in St. Louis. If you need an international airport to recruit somebody to travel.
We do a lot of that. We had a kid misunderstand where we were located one time, and he accidentally flew into Chicago, so we had to drive up to Chicago to pick him up, and he didn't understand it till we were in the car for
He's
4.5
like, well, I'm
hours.
flying to Illinois.
Yeah.
I've gotten that before, too, with the pro tennis tournament. They're like, well, I flew into Illinois thinking that, I could get to where I needed to be, not realizing that Illinois is like 6 hours top to bottom, if not more.
We're 4.5 hours from O'Hare Airport.
Well, it worked out. He found his way to Lewis and Clark eventually, right?
Great kid. Kid.
So what's the future of Lewis and Clark Community College there? You see it growing? You see it expanding? Do you see it getting bigger and better every year?
Everybody tells us that the student population of traditional AIDS kids is dwindling. Enrollment is a major, major factor at this point. Enrollment is a little bit down across the country. And I think what our school is doing is trying to figure out, okay, where do we go to increase our enrollment? And I think that's one of the good things about the athletics program is, those numbers are always going to stay the same. You're always going to have probably 15 basketball players. You're going to have 30 to 35 baseball players. So, we can do our part to support that enrollment. But it's dwindling somewhat for that 18 to 21-year-old.
Well, I think it's a fantastic first step, as I've already said multiple times. And I think I give that speech more than the average person because I'm a school teacher. And so when I'm talking to kids, what do you think your next step is going to be? And for some kids, it's I'm going to University of Illinois, I'm going to study engineering, I'm going to University of whatever, and I got to get away. And other kids like, I'm not really sure I can afford college. I'm not sure what I want to do. Check out Lewis and Clark, man. That's a great first step, and especially if you don't even know what you want to study yet.
It is. It's a great start. And, I think kids sometimes overestimate what they're really good at in their sport. And sometimes they come and go to school and realize, maybe I need to step away from athletics and just concentrate on academics. But then others discover, boy, I'm a lot better player than I ever dreamed I was, and move on and just are tremendous assets to our program and then the programs that they go to.
I've sent multiple kids there, multiple boys and girls for tennis, and I am delighted that you've kept tennis, boys and girls. I'm sure there have been times when you've had to consider dropping sports, but you've kept men's and women's tennis at Lewis and Clark, and I'm very grateful and happy about that.
Well, it's obviously we have a top-notch facility.
Oh, unbelievable.
In the Andy Simpson complex. And right now, Dave, there are only 2 community college athletic programs in Southern Illinois that sponsor tennis. It's a big sport in the Southeast, but we do love it. It just provides us an opportunity to I think have a diverse student body within the athletics department. As you know, each sport has its own culture and its own identity, and tennis is very much its own. But I think without it, we're not as whole as we want to be. So we fought to keep it all these years.
And you mentioned your facility. Your facility is on a national level in terms of tennis. Obviously, you held a professional tennis tournament for 20 years there, and we host one now. And a lot of people think, oh, yeah, your tournament, it used to be in Godfrey, right? And it's like, no, Godfrey had one, and we had one. And then you guys no longer have yours, but we did not take your place. The tournament that we took was in Peoria. When Peoria didn't want to have theirs anymore, that tournament got moved to Edwardsville. But for a while, it was Champaign, Decatur, Lewis and Clark, and Edwardsville all had what we called the Illinois swing. And then, the state budget dropped, and I know the story that I know what I've heard in terms of why you dropped the tournament. It just wasn't the right fit at the time for you guys.
Well, I'm not sure that it fits perfectly with the mission of the institution. I think it fit perfectly with our athletics department mission. But what we discovered is exactly what you discovered, Dave. Running a futures professional tennis tournament is an enormous amount of work. And our campus essentially shut down for, 15 days to get everybody involved in putting this thing on. And the longevity of some of these tournaments across the country, I don't know what the average was, but we're very proud that we were able to keep one for 20 years.
And the pro circuit loved being there, but I think sometimes some people felt like we took that tournament, and I'm always like, no, that's not what happened.
Yeah, that's couldn't be further from the truth.
In fact, we appreciate your partnership now. You still let us use those referees' chairs, and I definitely appreciate it.
We're happy to do so. We like helping neighbors.
Thank you. You're a good neighbor for sure. Let's talk about your team this year, because you don't get to just be the AD now. Now I want your coaching hat on. And
yeah,
how the Trailblazers going to be this year?
I think we're going to be long and lean. We got a couple of ugly guys that I think are going to be able to run and jump.
You can't say ugly guys.
Oh, well, I always tell guys when I see them, if they're the least bit handsome at all, I look them in the eye and say, man, I can't recruit you. And he says, what do you mean, coach? He says, well, you're too handsome. That means the girls are going to be chasing you all over campus. So we got to have ugly guys that want to get in the gym and work on shots. And
I'm sure you got to have some handsome players there,
We
Coach.
do.
You got to have some moms. You got to have some moms of players right now who are cussing at you.
well, moms are typically the ones that say, Coach, if you have any trouble, just give me a call.
Really?
And I'll get him straightened out. Oh, yeah. And that's all you got to do. If somebody's not going to class a couple of days, threaten a phone call to their mother. They'll get to class real quick.
So we're going to be long and lean and
Runners, jumpers. We've got 9 guys that are 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" range.
No kidding.
Yeah.
You are going to be long and lean.
Yeah, we're going to be long and lean.
So what does that mean? What style are we going to? We're not going to play the Princeton offense this year.
No, and that was an experiment that is probably better left to the university level basketball programs. It takes an enormous amount of time to teach the Princeton style, and we tried that in my first year back. It was 2014 and 15, and the kids really got the hang of it by the end of the year. And really proud of what they accomplished. But, boy, it was a challenge to get that type of system put in.
And that's what you had to play for that group of kids.
Yeah, and with this group, obviously the shot clock allows us to play pretty fast. And I anticipate that, we're going to try, full court as much as we can, getting out and running to score quick in a possession.
30 minutes of hell. Nolan Richardson.
Yeah, we won't be like that, but we've got guys that I think are terrific players, and we just got to get them liking each other and making sure that they're playing for each other.
How do you get themselves.
That's the challenge. The real need for everybody coming into junior college is to find that next 4-year school. And a lot of guys want to do that quick. And a lot of guys think, you know what, I got to put points on the board to get somebody interested in me. And, our talk is, look, if we can't win games, they're not going to care whether you score 25. It'll help you some to be a good scorer, but if you can get to a point where the opposing coaches are talking about you, and they're preparing their game plan for 2 days before they get to our gym, that's how you get recruited. You got to convince these opposing coaches you're a good player.
And maybe I'm wrong, but I believe you've got to have a good rapport, you personally, with a lot of these coaches, Division II, Division I, whatever, across the country. And so they're going to ask you, Coach Stotler, tell me your guys who are stand-up guys. Tell me your good team players. Does that matter to them?
The conversation gets started because they're good players. The conversation continues if I'm able to tell those recruiters, hey, these are good kids and they're good students. It's a 3-prong deal there. You can't be just a good player. You got to be a guy that coach knows when you step into their community that you're going to do things correctly.
Yep.
And when you step on their campus, so it's a multifaceted kid that universities need nowadays.
And is that process different now than it was 20 years ago?
I don't think so. I think I think the fact that social media probably magnifies problems allows coaches to avoid situations like that more. But it's still a conversation that they all have with us as they come in to recruit. Hey, is he a good kid? Is he a good student? We know he's a good player or we wouldn't be here. And that's where it starts.
Doug, thanks so much for coming by today. We've worked a long time to try to get you in here. You had a knee issue and you weren't able to come for a while in the summer, but we got you healthy and we got you in here. And I'm so glad to talk about Lewis and Clark and your good hoops team and your good and your overall awesome school there.
Lewis and Clark is a great place to be. And yeah, I guess I'm finding out that that your term lifer is pretty appropriate for me. I've been doing this a long time, but Lewis and Clark is fantastic, and it's going to be fantastic long after I'm gone. They've got great people there, and just love every minute of it.
Give it to me one time right here. That's my thing I'm doing now. Doug Stotler, Lewis and Clark, go Trailblazers.
That's right.